Hey everyone, today I'll be doing a quick review of my Giant Fathom 2 29er. I've owned the bike for over 6 months now, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to go over the pros and cons of the bike, my experience with it, any regrets, and some recommendations for those who are looking to buy their first bike. So to begin, quick disclaimer, I was a complete beginner when I bought this bike, and still to this day I consider myself a beginner, so this review is purely based off a beginner's perspective. Okay, so the first item I want to discuss is why I went with this bike. As I know from experience, the sheer amount of selection in the industry has to offer is very overwhelming, as there are just so many different bikes to choose from. So, why I went with the Giant Fathom 2 29er. Firstly, we all know Giant. We all know Giant make quality bikes with an affordable price tag. Additionally, Giant are everywhere and usually have plenty of stock. So to answer this question, the reason I went with this bike was the value for money and availability. Now, if finding the brand and model wasn't hard enough, you also have to pick a model spec. In this case, the Fathom 1 or 2. For this particular bike, it was a no-brainer for me as a beginner to go for the Fathom 2, as the only difference was the drivetrain, and being a beginner, I had no clue what the difference meant, but I was confident the drivetrain on the lower spec was sufficient for my riding, which actually allowed me to spend the money that I saved on good riding gear. So, as a takeaway, do plenty of research before going in store to test ride your bike, as it's very easy to get upsold on bikes, especially when the other spec has a nicer color. Now that that's out of the way, I'll go over the pros of the bike. Starting with the important stuff, the Fathom comes with a dropper post, 130 mm of suspension, tubeless wheels, and in-frame cable routing. Now, the dropper post alone was a game changer, and I couldn't imagine going without it. In terms of geometry, I always felt stable on the bike, which helps for high speeds going downhill, yet it still had plenty of nimbleness, which allowed me to throw the bike around on the trail and jumps. The gear changes were nice and fluid, and the brakes never left me feeling unconfident. So, all in all, riding the Fathom was a great experience and really allowed me to push myself on the trails. As for the cons, the only thing that went wrong for me was the chain guide braking. However, I believe these are relatively cheap to replace. Giant may even replace it for you in Goodwill. I just left mine off and didn't have any dramas. And apart from that, there's nothing else I can pick on the Fathom for. So, do I have any regrets? Absolutely not. I think the Fathom is a great bike for beginners on a budget, and I'm confident you won't ever outgrow the bike. The bike will truly get you down any trail or park. Now, as to recommendations, the only recommendation I have is don't stress too much on the color of the bike or get caught up in the final details such as the brand of the components. Just get a bike that has a good reputation for warranty and customer service and you'll be on your way. After riding this bike for 6 months, I love the sport so much I want to buy a full suspension bike. So all the time I spent comparing specs, colors, etc. will pretty much just be wasted when I buy the new bike. Just remember, your first bike's purpose is to introduce you to the sport, so you want it to be reliable but also affordable, as it most likely won't be your last bike purchase. All right. So the last thing to discuss is hardtail versus dual suspension and 29-inch wheels versus 27.5-inch. Just another disclaimer, I haven't actually ridden a dual suspension bike before, and I haven't ridden a bike with 27.5-inch wheels. So this is basically just from speaking from others, and basically to sum it up, if you're coming from a BMX background, 27.5-inch wheels usually feel correct, and by correct I mean normal and comfortable. as jumping from a small 20-inch BMX wheel straight to 29ers usually feels a little odd, and I think that'll definitely affect your enjoyment. Also, if you ride, say, BMX during the week and you want a mountain bike on the weekend, that 9-inch jump will be significantly noticeable. So, yeah, I think that's why they recommend 27.5s. They'd probably recommend 26s if you could still kind of buy brand new ones, but yeah, 27.5 is all you can get. And yeah, for dual suspension versus hardtail, it's quite clear everyone eventually rides a dually. So whether you want to straight up drop thousands on a bike is of course your call. I guess it just depends on how confident you are that you'll be riding the bike for years to come, and of course your budget. Um, but yeah, just remember there's no right choice. Everyone's situation is going to be different. Both bikes will pretty much do everything. So all that really matters is that you just jump on a bike and hit the trails. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and happy riding.